I never believed in legends. I always thought they were stories made up to scare children or keep tourists away from forgotten places. But that night, as we ventured deeper into Blackwood Forest, I realized that some stories aren't just words thrown to the wind. They're warnings. The trail narrowed as we pushed forward through the dense woods. The trees, twisted and immense, seemed to close in around us, forming a tunnel of shadows. The air was heavy, thick with humidity, and a strange smell of damp earth, and something else. Something rotten. I tried to shake off the unease, convincing myself it was just paranoia. There were 5 of us on this expedition. Me, Daniel, my best friend and the most skeptical of the group, Laura, always chasing new adventures to document for her channel, Miguel, the most experienced hiker, and Sophia, who had hesitated from the start but refused to be the only one to back out. The silence feels weird, doesn't it? Sophia whispered, her voice low, almost swallowed by the darkness. Indeed, there were no usual night sounds of the forest. No crickets, no rustling of small creatures in the leaves. Just a cold wind brushing through the trees and the muffled sound of our own footsteps. Daniel chuckled, trying to break the tension. Maybe the animals here respect bedtime. Relax. No one replied. Something deep in my mind screamed that this silence wasn't natural. After an hour of walking, we reached the clearing where we would set up camp. Laura hurried to set up her camera, eager to record the night's first footage. This place has such a creepy vibe, exactly what I wanted, she said, adjusting the lens. That was when Miguel suddenly stopped. Did you hear that? We all froze. The deep silence now felt heavy, as if something was lurking, holding its breath along with us. A sharp crack came from the woods, loud and dry. Something big. Probably a deer, I murmured, but even I didn't believe my own words. Laura swung her camera toward the noise, her face lit with excitement. Whatever it is, we'll find out. And that's when we saw it. Between the trees, just at the edge of the fire's faint glow, a tall, slender silhouette was watching us. It didn't move, didn't breathe. It was just there, as if it were part of the forest itself. A cold chill ran down my spine. I wanted to believe it was a shadow, a trick of our already fearful minds. But then it tilted its head, slowly, deliberately, studying us. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. The silence shattered as Sophia let out a strangled sob. "We need to leave," she whispered. But deep down I knew. The forest had already found us, and it wouldn't let us go so easily. The silence returned, but now it felt alive. It wasn't just the absence of sound. It was as if the forest itself was watching us, waiting. No one spoke, no one moved. We just stared at the spot where that thing had been moments ago. It was Daniel who broke the trance. Was that some kind of joke? Because if it was, it's not funny anymore. His voice sounded forced, a pathetic attempt to cling to rationality. "You think that was a joke, Daniel?" Sophia whispered, her eyes wide. That wasn't human." Miguel pulled out the knife he always carried and glanced around quickly. "Let's not panic. Whatever it was, we can't act like prey." Laura, still holding the camera, tried to see something through the lens. I recorded it. I think I did. She tapped the screen frantically, trying to zoom in. Whatever it was watching us. A chill ran down my spine. The thought that something had been observing us, without our knowledge, made my stomach turn. I looked at the fire, the flames flickering as if they could go out at any moment. Maybe we should leave. Miguel shook his head. The trail back is long and dark. If this was an animal or whatever else, we're safer staying together here. Daniel sat down heavily, running his hands over his face. "Okay, then we stay. But someone has to keep watch." The night dragged on. I volunteered for the first shift, but the feeling of being watched never faded. The forest seemed to breathe, pulse around us. Every rustling leaf, every distant crack made me clench my fists. The campfire was our only protection, a small circle of light surrounded by an abyss of shadows. Around 3 in the morning, when Miguel was on watch, a different sound broke the silence. Footsteps, not the random movement of an animal, but something walking, slow, methodical. My heart pounded. Lara and Daniel woke up at the same time, as if they sensed the danger before even hearing it. Sophia covered her mouth, stifling a sob, and then a voice, low, whispering, coming from the darkness between the trees. Go back. My blood turned to ice. The voice was dragged out uneven, as if it wasn't used to speaking. But the worst part was the tone. It sounded like a mixture of voices, as if multiple people were whispering at once. Miguel stood up slowly, gripping his knife. Who's there? Silence. Then the sound returned. Footsteps, now closer. Something was moving between the trees, circling the clearing, but never stepping into the light. Daniel pressed himself against his backpack, his eyes wide. That's not an animal. Lara clutched her camera tightly. We need to leave. Now. But before we could react, the voice came again, this time whispering our names. The darkness felt denser now, as if something invisible was shaping it around us. The forest, once merely threatening, had become a maze of suffocating shadows. The whisper had stopped, but the feeling of being watched didn't. We have to leave. Now. Lara clutched the camera to her chest, her eyes wide. Miguel nodded, holding the knife tightly, as though it could protect us from whatever was out there. Follow me. Quietly. We moved in a line, stepping carefully over the wet ground. Every twig that snapped beneath our feet sounded like a gunshot in the oppressive silence. Fear made our breaths shallow, but no one dared speak. Then we heard it. Footsteps. Not behind us, but all around, as though something was following us, and at the same time, surrounding us. Daniel whispered, barely audible, "This isn't possible." The forest began to change. The trees seemed taller, their canopies leaning over us, blocking any glimpse of the sky. The path we had followed simply vanished. Panic set in. This isn't right. Sophia gripped my arm tightly, her voice thick with terror. We were on the trail. I'm sure of it. Keep walking. Miguel's voice was firmer than it should have been, but even he seemed shaken. The air grew heavier, harder to breathe. The smell of damp earth mixed with something rotten, something ancient. Then Lara screamed. We turned just in time to see her drop to her knees, her eyes fixed on the camera screen. Her face was pale like wax. There's someone on the footage. Her voice faltered. I approached and looked at the screen. There, between the trees, captured by the greenish glow of the night vision, was a silhouette. Tall, too thin to be human. The eyes empty. Just shadows where there should have been a face. And somehow, I knew that thing was staring directly at us. That was enough. We ran. The branches tore at us. The roots tried to trip us. The noise around us became deafening. Footsteps, whispers, distorted laughter. The whole forest seemed alive, pushing us somewhere. Then I saw the clearing, the same one where we had camped. No, Miguel stopped suddenly. This is impossible. We had run in a straight line. How had we ended up back at the starting point? That's when we realized. The campfire was still burning, but something was different. Our tent, it wasn't there before. It was old, torn, covered in moss, as if it had been there for years. And then the voice came again. You never left. The night consumed us,